Episode 5: The Seer and the Shinobi. There's a specific quality to the light in the Pacific Northwest that exists nowhere else. It's not quite sunlight, not in the way most people understand it. It's filtered through layers of cloud and mist, diffused until it becomes something softer, more ethereal, less illumination, and more suggestion, like the world itself is holding its breath. Standing at the edge of the forest on Saturday morning, watching that strange light paint everything in shades of silver and green, I understood why Alice had chosen this moment. This place. Why she'd asked me to meet her somewhere new, somewhere that wasn't stained with the familiar patterns of our midnight training sessions. The text had come at dawn. Simple, direct. Coordinates and a time. 10 in the morning. She'd included a single additional line that had set my heart racing. Time for the whole truth. All of it, together. I told Charlie I was going hiking. Told Bella I needed to clear my head. Both true enough, though the reality was infinitely more complex. I was going to meet my mate, the precognitive vampire who'd stolen my heart and upended my entire understanding of possible and impossible. And we were going to lay every card on the table. No more careful revelations, no more measured honesty. Just truth, raw and complete, and potentially devastating. The coordinates led me deeper into the forest than I'd ventured before, following game trails and intuition in equal measure. My chakra-enhanced senses made the navigation easier than it should have been, picking up traces of Alice's passage. The faint disturbance in the moss where she'd stepped, the almost imperceptible scent of freesia that clung to the air in her wake. After 20 minutes of steady climbing, the forest opened up. The meadow was breathtaking. Roughly circular, maybe 100 feet across, carpeted in wildflowers that shouldn't have been blooming this early in the season, but somehow were anyway. Purple and white and yellow, a riot of color against the endless green of the surrounding forest. The trees formed a perfect natural barrier, their canopy creating a ceiling high above that allowed filtered light through, but maintained a sense of privacy, of sacred isolation. And in the center of it all, standing among the flowers like some fairy tale illustration, come to life, was Alice. She dressed simply, dark jeans, a cream-colored sweater, her short black hair artfully tousled by wind that didn't quite reach ground level. But it was her expression that caught my breath. Open, vulnerable, nervous in a way I'd never seen from her before, not even during our most intense conversations. She was afraid. Not of me, I didn't think, but of what came next. Of the weight of total honesty, and where it might lead us. "You found it," she said as I approached, her voice carrying easily across the meadow. "I wasn't entirely sure you would. The trail isn't exactly well marked." "You left enough clues," I replied, stopping a few feet away. Close enough to see the topaz shade of her eyes, the way they caught and reflected the diffused light. Close enough to feel the pull, that magnetic certainty that had been growing stronger every day. And I'm getting better at tracking. One of the unexpected benefits of chakra enhancement. Alice smiled, small but genuine. "You've grown so much in just 2 weeks. The difference between the boy who arrived in Forks and the person standing before me now, it's remarkable. You're coming into your power, Kai. Becoming something extraordinary." "We both know I'm not the extraordinary one in this relationship," I said, gesturing to encompass her. The meadow, the impossibility of everything. "You're the vampire, the precognitive, the one who's lived decades and seen futures I can't begin to imagine." "And yet you're the one I can't see," Alice countered, moving closer. "The blind spot in my otherwise perfect vision. Do you have any idea how intoxicating that is? How terrifying and exhilarating it is to finally, after so many years of knowing exactly what's coming, to face true uncertainty?" She stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I could feel the coolness radiating from her skin, see the fine details that marked her as other. The flawless quality of her features, the stillness that came from not needing to breathe, the inhuman grace in every tiny movement. "This meadow," she said quietly, her eyes never leaving mine, "is special to my kind. Private. Sacred, almost. When vampires want to reveal themselves completely to someone they trust, someone they're considering bringing into their world, they bring them to a place like this. Somewhere beautiful. Somewhere isolated. Somewhere the truth can exist without fear of discovery." "And you brought me here," I said, understanding the significance. "To reveal yourself completely." "To reveal ourselves completely," Alice corrected. "Both of us. I'll show you everything about what I am, answer every question you have about vampires and our nature. And in return, I want the same from you, Kai. The whole truth about your power, about how you came to possess abilities that shouldn't exist. No more mysteries. No more careful revelations. Just us, honest and bare and accepting." The proposal hung between us, weighted with significance. This was the threshold, the point of no return. Once we crossed it, once all secrets were laid bare, there would be no going back to the careful dance we'd been performing. We'd be fully committed, for better or worse, to whatever this bond between us meant. I thought about refusing, about suggesting we maintain some boundaries, some mysteries. It would be safer, more rational, the smart play. But safety had never been what drew me to Alice, and rationality had no place in a world where I'd been reborn with the powers of a shinobi and fallen for a vampire who could see the future. "Yes," I said simply. "All of it. Everything. I'm ready." Alice's smile was radiant, relieved and excited in equal measure. She took my hand, her fingers cool and strong around mine, and led me deeper into the meadow. We settled in the center, surrounded by flowers, the filtered sunlight casting everything in that strange, ethereal glow. "I suppose I should start at the beginning," Alice said, still holding my hand like I was an anchor. "Though for me, the beginning is missing. I don't remember being human, Kai. I woke up as a vampire in 1920, in an asylum in Mississippi, with no memory of who I'd been or how I'd gotten there. Just visions. Endless visions of futures I didn't understand, and a strange man with golden eyes who I somehow knew would save me." She spoke for what felt like hours, painting a picture of her existence that was by turns fascinating and tragic and extraordinary. She described waking with power and no context, driven by visions she couldn't fully interpret, finding Carlyle through precognition, being welcomed into a family of vampires who'd chosen to be more than monsters, learning to control the thirst, the endless burning need for blood that defined their existence. She explained the Cullen diet, their choice to hunt animals instead of humans. Described the way animal blood satisfied the physical need, but never quite the hunger, leaving them in a constant state of controlled want. She was honest about the difficulty of being around humans, the way their scent called to the predator in every vampire, the monumental control required to exist in spaces like high school without giving in to instinct. "We're incredibly strong," Alice continued, her voice taking on a more clinical quality. "Fast enough to seem invisible to human perception. Our senses are heightened to an almost painful degree. We can hear heartbeats from 100 yards away, track scents across miles, or see in almost total darkness. And we're durable, nearly indestructible. Only being torn apart and burned can truly kill us." "And the sunlight?" I asked, remembering myths and legends. "I've heard vampires can't go out in the sun." Alice's laugh was musical. "That's the most absurd part of our existence. We can go out in the sun just fine. It doesn't hurt us or weaken us, but it does reveal us, which is why we avoid it. She paused, seeming to come to a decision. Would you like to see? The clouds are thick enough today that we're not in danger of true sunlight. But if I concentrate, if I let myself shine just a little. She released my hand and stood, moving to where a thin shaft of light penetrated the canopy. Then, she stepped into it. Even filtered through clouds and trees, the effect was stunning. Alice's skin didn't just reflect the light. It fractured it, refracted it, turned her into something that sparkled like she'd been carved from diamond. Every exposed inch of skin glittered and shimmered, beautiful and alien and utterly inhuman. We sparkle, Alice said, her tone wry, like the world's most ridiculous disco balls. It's why we can't be in direct sunlight around humans. There's no explaining this away. No rational reason for a person to glitter like they're made of crystal. So we stay hidden on sunny days, or we go places where the sun rarely shines. She stepped out of the light, and the sparkling faded, leaving her merely impossibly beautiful, rather than otherworldly luminous. It's vanity, really, that makes us avoid it. The revelation. Most vampires actually enjoy the feeling of sunlight. It's warm, pleasant, but it makes us monstrous in the eyes of humans who see it, so we hide. She returned to sit beside me, reclaiming my hand. The visions are my particular gift. Every vampire has something, some ability that carries over from their human life or manifests during the transformation. Edward reads minds. Jasper manipulates emotions. I see the future, or rather, I see futures. Possibilities based on decisions people make. The visions update constantly as choices change, showing me hundreds of possible paths. Except mine, I said quietly. Except yours, Alice confirmed. With you, there's just darkness. A void where your decision should be. I can see the effects of your actions. Watch futures shift as you influence events. But I can never see you directly. It's like you exist outside the normal flow of fate, untouchable by precognition. And that doesn't frighten you? Not being able to see what I'll do? It terrifies me, Alice admitted, her honesty absolute. I've relied on my visions for so long, used them as a shield against uncertainty, not knowing what you'll choose, where you'll go, whether you'll stay or leave. It's the most vulnerable I've ever been. But Kai? It's also the most alive I've felt in decades. You make every moment unpredictable, every conversation a genuine surprise. You've given me back something I didn't even realize I'd lost. The ability to be amazed. The raw emotion in her voice, the absolute sincerity, settled into my chest like warm honey. This was what she'd meant by complete honesty. Not just facts and explanations, but feelings and vulnerabilities and fears. Your turn, Alice said softly. I've told you what I am, shown you the truth of my nature. Now I want to know you, Kai. Really know you. You've hinted at things, at a source for your power you don't fully understand. But I can feel there's more. Something you haven't shared with anyone. Maybe not even Bella. So tell me. Please. What are you? This was it. The moment of ultimate trust. I could deflect, could share part of the truth while keeping the deepest secret buried. She'd probably accept it, wouldn't push beyond what I was willing to share. But that wasn't what this moment was about. Alice had bared her soul, shared vulnerabilities and fears, and the fundamental truth of her monstrous nature. She deserved the same in return. I took a breath, let it out slowly, and began to speak. I wasn't always Kai Swan, I said, the words feeling both impossible and inevitable. I had another life before this one. Another name, another existence. I died, Alice. I died, and then I woke up 17 years ago as a newborn infant with memories of a completely different. I watched her face carefully, looking for disbelief or horror or rejection. Instead, I saw only focused attention, that intense way she listened when her visions were showing her something important. I was reborn, I continued. Reincarnated, transmigrated, whatever term you want to use. I woke up with the memories of my previous life intact, living in the body of Bella's twin brother. For years, I tried to convince myself it was just vivid imagination, that the memories weren't real, but they were. Are. I remember dying. Remember the sensation of everything ending, and then beginning again. Acquainting. And the power? Alice asked quietly. The chakra? That came with you? It was always there, I think, I said. Dormant. Waiting. When I was younger, I couldn't access it at all. It was just potential. Something I could sense but not touch. But when we moved to Forks, when everything changed, it woke up. Started responding to my will. Growing stronger every day. I raised my free hand, let chakra pull in the palm. Not much, just enough to be visible in the strange light of the meadow. Blue-white energy swirling like trapped lightning. It's called chakra. Life energy made manifest. I can channel it through my body, use it to enhance my physical abilities. Speed, strength, perception. And with training, with discipline, I should be able to do more. Techniques that would seem like magic to anyone watching. I'm still learning, still discovering the limits. But Alice, I think this power, whatever its source, is why you can't see me in your visions. I exist outside the normal rules, because I shouldn't exist at all. Alice stared at the chakra swirling in my palm, her expression cycling through wonder and fascination and something that looked almost like hunger. Not for blood, but for understanding. For connection with someone as impossible as herself. A second life, she murmured. A soul that transcended death and found a new home. Kai, do you have any idea how extraordinary that is? Vampires are frozen at the moment of transformation, unchanging and eternal. But you've lived twice, died and been reborn. That consciousness can persist beyond the death of the body. Or I'm insane, I offered, only half joking. Suffering from some elaborate delusion that coincidentally comes with supernatural powers. You're not insane, Alice said firmly. She reached out, her cool fingers passing through the yi-shulker in my palm, and I saw her shiver at the contact. I can feel this. Can sense the life in it. It's warm, vibrant, so fundamentally alive that it makes my own existence feel cold by comparison. This is real, Kai. You're real. And you're the most remarkable thing I've encountered in my very long life. I let the chakra dissipate, curled my fingers around Alice's hand instead. I don't know why I have this power. Don't know if it's something all reincarnated souls possess, or if I'm unique. Don't know if there are limits to what I can eventually do, or if the potential is truly boundless. But I know it's growing. Every day I train, every technique I master, it expands, evolves, becomes something more. Show me, Alice said, her voice taking on an edge of excitement. Not just the glow in your palm, but what you can actually do with it. I've seen glimpses during our training sessions, watch you move faster than you should, and substitute yourself with objects. But I want to see more. Want to understand the full scope of what you're capable of. I stood, pulling Alice up with me, and moved to a clear space in the meadow. The flowers swayed around us, painting the air with subtle fragrance. Above, the clouds continued their eternal motion, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow. The foundation of everything is enhancement, I explained, falling easily into the teaching mode Alice and I had developed over our training sessions, channeling chakra through my body to temporarily exceed human limitations. Watch. I gathered energy to my legs, felt it pull in the muscles like liquid lightning, and moved. Not my full speed, not the desperate burst I'd managed in the parking lot when Bella was in danger, but fast enough to demonstrate. I crossed the meadow in a blur, touched one of the boundary trees, and returned to stand beside Alice in less than 3 seconds. That's incredible, Alice breathed. You're not vampire fast, not yet, but you're far beyond human capability. And that's just the beginning? Just the beginning, I confirmed. There's also this. I moved to a fallen log at the meadow's edge, one that probably weighed close to 200 pounds. Gathered chakra to my arms and core, enhancing not just strength, but leverage and balance. Then I lifted. The log rose smoothly, held overhead with an ease that would have been impossible for normal human musculature. I held it for a count of 10, and set it down just as carefully. Enhanced strength, I explained. Not as dramatic as the speed yet, but improving daily. With enough chakra and the right technique, I should eventually be able to match or exceed vampire strength. Should? Alice questioned, moving closer. You don't sound certain. Because I'm not, I admitted. Everything I'm doing is based on instinct and fragmented memories from my previous life. I remember watching shows, reading stories about people with abilities like this. But I don't have a manual. Alice, don't have a teacher who understands what I am. I'm figuring it out through trial and error and gut feeling. Then let me help, Alice said immediately. I might not understand chakra, but I understand training, discipline, pushing beyond perceived limits. And Carla? But I understand training, discipline, pushing beyond perceived limits. And Carlyle has resources, books, and knowledge accumulated over centuries. If there's information about abilities like yours anywhere in the world, we'll find it. The certainty in her voice, the absolute conviction that we could solve this mystery together, sent warmth flooding through my chest. This was what it meant to have a mate, I realized. Not just romantic connection, but partnership. Someone who saw your struggles and immediately moved to share the burden. There's more, I said, wanting her to see everything. Advanced techniques, things that seem impossible even by supernatural standards. I moved back to the center of the meadow, Alice watching with rapt attention. Formed the hand signs by instinct, feeling chakra respond to the complex pattern. This was the technique I'd been working on for the past week, the one that required the most control and precision. The substitution. I picked up a thick branch from the forest floor, held it in my left hand while gathering chakra. Then I focused on the log I lifted earlier, visualized the exchange, and executed the technique. Reality twisted. There was a sensation of being in two places at once, of occupying both positions simultaneously for a fraction of a heartbeat. Then the world snapped back into focus, and I was standing next to the log while the branch I'd been holding lay where I'd just been standing. Alice's gasp was gratifying. She moved to examine both positions, her movements too fast to follow, checking the branch and then appearing beside me in an eye blink. You teleported, she said, wonder thick in her voice. Kai, you just teleported across 20 feet of space. How is that possible? It's not really teleportation, I explained, though honestly my understanding was incomplete. It's more like a very rapid exchange. I swap places with an object using chakra as the medium. The technique requires precise control and depletes my reserves quickly, but it's effective for evasion or repositioning. It's extraordinary, Alice corrected. Vampires can't do anything like that. We're fast, strong, durable, but we're still bound by physical laws. We have to cross the distance between 2 points. You just redefined what distance means. The awe in her voice made my chest swell with pride. I'd impressed a century-old vampire with supernatural abilities of her own. That felt like an achievement worth celebrating. There's one more thing, I said, returning to stand before her. The most important thing, really. The reason I needed to tell you all of this, to share the truth about my reincarnation and my power. I took both her hands, held her golden gaze with my own. In my previous life, I was alone. Different. Never quite fitting into the world I inhabited. I died without ever finding someone who truly understood me, who I could be completely honest with. And when I woke up in this life, with these memories and this power, I thought I'd be alone again. Thought the strangeness of my existence would isolate me forever. Alice's expression softened, her fingers tightening around mine. But then I met you, I continued. This impossible vampire who can see the future but can't see me. Who's just as strange and isolated and different as I am. And I realized that maybe I was reborn, not just to have a second chance at life, but to find you. To find the one person in all of existence who could accept every impossible thing about me, because she's equally impossible. Kai, Alice breathed, my name a prayer on her lips. You're my mate, Alice Cullen, I said, the words feeling both profound and inevitable. I know it with the same certainty you know through your visions, but I know it through feeling. Through the way every moment with you feels right in a way nothing else in either of my lives ever has. Through the way I look at eternity and only want it if you're there. You're my destiny, Alice, my purpose, the reason I was given this impossible second chance. Alice's eyes were bright, emotions playing across her perfect features too quickly to catalog. Wonder and joy, and something that looked almost like relief. I thought I was broken, she said quietly. Thought my inability to see you meant something was wrong with my gift, that I was losing the one thing that made me special. But Kai, you're not a flaw in my visions. You're the exception that proves they're not absolute. You're proof that destiny has blind spots, that the future isn't fixed, and that terrifies me and exhilarates me in equal measure. She released one of my hands, reached up to touch my face, her cool fingers gentle against my skin. You're my mate too, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. I knew it the moment I saw you in the cafeteria, even if I couldn't admit it to myself right away. Knew that you were the blind spot I'd been seeing in my visions for years, the space where my happiness existed but I couldn't quite see its shape. And now I know why. Because happiness, real and true and absolute, can't be predicted. It has to be lived, experienced, chosen every single day. And you choose this? I asked, needing to hear her say it. Choose me, despite the mystery and the uncertainty and the fact that I might be dangerous? I choose you, Alice said firmly. Choose the mystery and uncertainty and the possibility of danger. Because Kai, you're not just my mate. You're my adventure. The one thing in my entire existence that I can't predict or control. And I've discovered I don't want to predict or control you. I just want to experience you. Every surprising, impossible, extraordinary moment. She pulled me closer until we were mere inches apart, her golden eyes bright and absolutely certain. I love you, she said simply. I love you with the totality of my considerable existence. I love that I can't see your future because it means we get to build it together. I love your power and your kindness and your absolutely ridiculous white hair that makes you look like an anime character come to life. I love everything about you, Kai Swan, and I will spend the rest of forever proving it. The word settled into my chest, burrowing into that place where the chakra coiled and pulsed. Love. She loved me. This extraordinary creature who had lived decades and seen millions of futures loved me, completely and absolutely and without reservation. I love you too, I said, my voice rough with emotion. Love you with everything I am, everything I was, and everything I'm becoming. You're my forever, Alice. My eternity. The one constant in a life that's been nothing but change and possibility. I closed the remaining distance between us, and we kissed in the center of the meadow, surrounded by flowers and filtered light and the absolute certainty of destiny fulfilled. The kiss was different this time, deeper, more complete. Not the tentative exploration of our first kiss in the forest, but the absolute claiming of mates recognizing each other. Her cool lips against mine, her fingers in my hair, my hands on her waist pulling her closer. Time stretched and compressed, the world narrowing to just this, just us, just the perfect rightness of a connection. When we finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless despite Alice's lack of biological need, the world felt fundamentally altered, brighter, more vibrant. Like the act of admitting our love had somehow made reality more real. So, what happens now? I asked, my forehead resting against hers, unwilling to create distance between us. Now we face the world together, Alice said, her voice steady despite the smile I could hear in it. My family needs to meet you properly, needs to understand what you are and what you mean to me. Bella and Edward need to navigate their own complicated connection, and you need to continue training, growing stronger, preparing for the challenges that are coming. Challenges? I questioned, something in her tone suggesting weight beyond the general. Alice pulled back slightly, her expression turning more serious. My visions have been showing me fragments, pieces of possible futures that are concerning. Nothing concrete yet, no clear threats. But Kai, our world is dangerous, filled with vampires who don't share my family's philosophy, supernatural creatures with their own agendas, humans who would fear and destroy anything they don't understand. We've marked ourselves as different, as special. That will draw attention eventually. Then we'll face it, I said firmly. Together. Whatever comes, we'll be ready. I'll train harder, push my limits until I'm strong enough to stand beside you against any threat. And you'll help me understand this power, master it, become worthy of being your mate. You're already worthy, Alice said, fierce and immediate. But I won't discourage the training. I've seen glimpses of what you might become, Kai. Fragments of futures where your power has grown beyond anything I can fully comprehend, where you stand against threats that would terrify even ancient vampires. Those futures excite me, because they mean you survive, thrive, become something truly legendary. No pressure then, I said, and was rewarded with her musical laugh. We spent the rest of the morning in the meadow, talking about everything and nothing. Alice shared more stories of her existence, the decades of learning to be more than a monster, the family she'd found, and the life they'd built together. I told her more about my previous life, carefully editing the specifics but sharing the feelings, the isolation and difference and search for meaning. We talked about the practical matters too, how to approach introducing me formally to her family, when to reveal the full truth about our bond to Bella and Charlie, how to navigate the increasingly complicated dynamics at school now that both Swan twins were entangled with vampires. The sun tracked across the sky, though we barely noticed beneath the forest canopy. Time felt irrelevant, malleable, like the meadow existed in a bubble separate from the normal flow of hours and minutes. It was Alice who finally, reluctantly, suggested we needed to return to reality. Carlyle wants to meet you, she said as we walked hand in hand back through the forest. properly meet you, not just a polite acknowledgement at school. He's curious about your abilities, about the source of your power, and he's protective of family, wants to assess whether you're a threat. Am I? I asked. A threat to your family? Alice laughed. You're the least threatening person I've ever met, and I include humans in that assessment. But you're also incredibly powerful and getting stronger every day. Carlisle needs to see that power for himself, understand its nature. Once he does, once he recognizes that you're my mate and therefore family, he'll be your strongest ally. When? I asked simply. Tomorrow. Sunday afternoon. Come to our house. Meet everyone officially. And, Kai, be yourself. Show them what you can do, but more importantly, show them who you are. That's what'll win them over. Not your power, but your character. We emerged from the forest near my house, the familiar sight of civilization feeling almost jarring after hours in the meadow's ethereal beauty. Alice stopped at the boundary between trees and lawn, that invisible line she'd never crossed before. Tomorrow? She repeated. 2:00. I'll text you the address, though you probably already know it from all the research you've done. Stalking, I corrected with a grin. The word you're looking for is stalking. I've been stalking the Cohens through careful observation and information gathering. That's such a creepy way to phrase it, Alice said, but she was laughing. I prefer to think of it as healthy curiosity about your mate's living situation. She rose on her toes, pressed a quick kiss to my lips, then was gone in a blur of motion, leaving only the faint scent of freesia and the warmth of her affection. I stood there for a moment, letting the reality of the day settle into my bones. I told Alice everything, shared the deepest secret of my reincarnation, demonstrated my abilities, admitted my love. And she'd accepted it all, embraced it, claimed me as completely as I'd claimed her. Tomorrow I'd face her family, would demonstrate my power and hopefully convince them I was worthy of standing beside one of their own. It should have been terrifying, the prospect of facing a coven of vampires and asking for their blessing. Instead, I'm not exactly in a position to judge. Edward and I have our own complicated dynamic developing. He terrifies me and fascinates me in equal measure. So yeah, we're both in deep with creatures who could kill us without effort. But Kai, I think we're exactly where we're supposed to be. The Swan twins, making terrible decisions and loving every minute of it. I laughed, moved to hug my sister, grateful beyond words for her understanding and support. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new revelations, new thresholds to cross. But tonight, I had this. The certainty of Alice's love, the support of my sister, the growing mastery of impossible power, and the absolute conviction that my second life, strange and supernatural and extraordinary, was exactly what I'd been meant for. The real adventure was just beginning, but I was ready for it. More than ready. With Alice beside me, with power growing inside me, with a destiny that couldn't be predicted or controlled, I was unstoppable. Welcome to Forever, I thought as I headed upstairs to prepare for tomorrow's meeting. Welcome to the impossible made real. The shinobi and the seer facing eternity together. It was going to be extraordinary.